A very good afternoon to you from Manila. Thanks very much for voting on my very first Twitter poll. I asked the question, what practical storytelling tip would you like more information about? And the winner was, how do I end my stories? I get this question quite a bit actually, and have you had that situation where the you finish the story and then it just keeps going and going and going, sort of a rambling mess, and you don't really know how to stop and finish it. I see that quite often. You can really change that with a couple of different strategies. And the first strategy I'd suggest is the simple stop when you finish the story, right? I know it feels a little bit weird when you do it. So you finish your story and then you just pause, and then you move on to the next topic. It's as simple as that. I find it's really important not to tell the listener what they should think about the story, right? So you shouldn't get to the end of the story and say something like, so what that story means is, and then you start to describe the story. Because if you do that, you're kind of taking the power of the story away from the listener. You're sort of bringing it back to the teller, and you're sort of saying, hey, I'm going to tell you what this story means. And really that doesn't help in terms of the communication, in terms of the impact. You want the listener to be sort of making sense of it. It takes a little while for them to absorb it and get meaning from it, but it's much better if they're working that out for themselves. The second strategy is if you don't want to do that, but you want to make sure that they're getting the point, it actually works quite well if you just sort of reflect on the questions that spring to your mind about the story. So you finish the story and you sort of say, I guess that experience really got me thinking that, and then you give your opinion about the story. Now, that's a softer way for you to share what you think the story is about without really saying, I'm telling you what you need to think about it. You're just sort of saying, hey, these are some of my reflections about the story. So that's a very simple and straightforward approach. I think from there, after just pausing and sort of giving your opinion, I think the other thing is to ask the audience a question, right? Because what often happens is as you're sharing a story, the audience are reminded of their own experiences. And that's actually where the rapport building happens, because the audience starts to realize that they've had experiences just like the teller. Right? So you get much closer to one another by just recounting that story. So at the end of your story, you might just sort of say, so what does that bring to mind for you? Or, what questions spring to mind as a result of that? And again, pause and give that opportunity. That's when conversation starts, right? So there are three strategies to finish your story. You can use just the straight pause strategy right at the end of the story. You stop. That's actually a very good strategy. The second one is the sort of self-reflection strategy where you're, sort of just thinking about what this story means to you and articulating it in those terms. And then the third one, ask the audience a question. Well, hope that works for you well. I'm going to throw out a couple more of these polls. I think they're a great idea to get a bit of a sense of what people are thinking and what they'd really like to know more about. Until then, it's Sean Callahan from Anecdote. Talk to you soon.